I was looking through this 10th grade biology curriculum the other day, and it hit me. We usually just think of the digestive system as this collection of organs. But if you really look at the biology, it's actually much better understood as the body's ultimate, most astounding processing factory. So, in this explainer, we're going to break down every single department of this incredible biological machinery. We're going to take those complex textbook concepts and turn them into a clear, visual blueprint. Get ready, because you're about to see your own body in a completely new way.
Okay, here's our exact syllabus for today. First, factory fuel. Second, the assembly line. Third, factory software. Fourth, breakdowns. And finally, a rapid-fire review. Let's get right into it.
Starting right off with Section 1, Factory Fuel, or Essential Nutrition. So when most of us think about nutrition, we just think about the act of eating, right? But biologically speaking, it is the fundamental process of extracting ATP. That's biological energy. Think of ATP as the ultimate currency your body uses to build brand new cells, repair wounds, and power up your immune system. Now, if we map out the factory's raw materials to their specific functions, it makes total sense. Carbohydrates, stuff like roti, rice, potatoes, those are your quick start mechanisms. They give you instant glucose. Then you've got proteins, lentils, eggs, meat. These are your heavy-duty building blocks, literally essential for repairing hardware and fixing cells. And fats, things like ghee and oils, they provide that sustained heat and long-term energy. Literally every single bite you take has a specific job description.
But listen, a factory cannot run on raw materials alone. It needs maintenance fluids. Water and fiber are your absolutely essential system coolants and cleaners. I mean, you could eat all the perfect proteins and carbs in the world, but without water acting as a solvent and fiber acting as a broom to sweep the assembly line clean, this entire biological machine would just halt, completely shut down. They are strictly non-negotiable if you want to keep the gears turning smoothly.
And that perfectly sets up Section 2, the digestive assembly line. Now, the overarching goal of this massive operation is brilliantly simple but wildly complex to actually execute. The goal is to take heavy, solid food and break it down into molecules so incredibly microscopic that they can just slip right into your bloodstream. Let's actually trace a bite of food down this timeline. It all starts at the top, in the mouth. Your teeth grind things up while an enzyme in your saliva called amylase kicks off the chemical breakdown. Next, it drops down the esophagus, and it doesn't just fall, it's actively pushed by wave-like muscle contractions called peristalsis. Then, boom, it hits the stomach. The stomach is essentially this intense, highly acidic chemical bath of pepsin and hydrochloric acid. Guys, this acid is literally strong enough to dissolve metal. Crazy, right? After getting pulverized there, it moves into the small intestine, which is the absolute central hub for nutrient absorption. Finally, whatever is left over gets pushed to the large intestine. Think of the large intestine like a giant squeegee, wringing out and reclaiming all that water before the final waste disposal. But here's the thing, this main conveyor belt doesn't work alone. Just like any massive industrial plant, the main line needs specialized support from what we can call the super helpers. On one side, you have the liver, absolute powerhouse of an organ, and it exclusively manufactures bile. On the other side, the pancreas. This guy releases heavy-duty enzymes straight into the small intestine. Together, they tag-team the absolute toughest, most complex fats and proteins that the stomach just couldn't handle on its own. Okay, moving from the hardware over to the programming, let's look at Section 3, Factory Software, the 5 stages of digestion. I want you to think of digestion not just as food moving through tubes, but as a strictly coded, sequential software program. It runs in 5 distinct stages. Stage 1 is ingestion. That's simply logging the raw materials into the system through your mouth. Stage 2 is digestion, where the code actually executes the physical and chemical breakdown of those materials. Stage 3 is absorption, super critical step. This is where those tiny nutrients finally cross over the barrier and into the bloodstream. Stage 4 is assimilation. This is where the real magic happens. Those nutrients literally become part of your cells, generating that vital ATP energy we talked about. And finally, Stage 5, egestion. Just the automated system protocol for clearing out the unusable waste. It's an absolutely flawless biological algorithm. But of course, no factory is perfect. Things go wrong. So let's troubleshoot in Section 4, Factory Breakdowns and Maintenance. Just like any heavy industrial machine, our gut deals with immense stress. It handles daily overloads, unexpected blockages, bacterial invaders, you name it. And when we look at everyday breakdowns, it is a very direct cause and effect. If you overload the system by eating too heavily or way too fast, the effect is indigestion. If you accidentally introduce malicious bugs through bad water, the system triggers diarrhea to flush it out, which, by the way, means you need ORS immediately to restore hydration. And if you starve the system of its coolants, meaning low fiber and low water, the machinery literally gets stuck. That's constipation. Honestly, your body's just giving you real-time push notifications about what's going wrong.
Sometimes, though, the crashes are a lot more severe. Take a peptic ulcer. That's a super painful sore in the stomach lining. It's often triggered by a bacteria called H. pylori, extreme mental stress, or just overly spicy food. Then there's jaundice. This happens when a hepatitis virus attacks our super helper, the liver. Toxins build up so fast that your skin literally turns yellow. And of course, appendicitis. That's a severely painful inflammation in the lower abdomen that usually requires an immediate emergency surgical reboots of fix.
So, how do we prevent these massive system failures? Well, the ultimate maintenance manual for this whole operation is surprisingly simple. Drink clean water, wash your hands before you eat your meals on a punctual schedule, and eat high amounts of fiber. Honestly, these aren't just good ideas. They are strict daily maintenance protocols to keep your factory running flawlessly.
All right, let's lock all this knowledge in. Welcome to Section 5, the Rapid Fire Exam Review.
Here is your first question. Imagine you're looking closely at the internal architecture of the small intestine. What is the primary function of those tiny finger-like structures known as villi? Take a second. What do they do? The answer is they vastly increase the internal surface area. It's a brilliant piece of biological efficiency. By folding and projecting outward like millions of tiny little fingers, the villi expand the absorption zone so massively that not a single drop of nutrient-rich fuel is wasted as it passes by. Okay, question 2. And watch out, examiners absolutely love this one. It's a classic trip question. Where does bile actually come from? Which organ produces this fat-breaking liquid? Don't get tricked. The answer is the liver. Even though bile does all of its heavy lifting and fat-breaking work down inside the small intestine, it is exclusively manufactured and produced up in the liver. And that is exactly why we labeled the liver as a super helper organ earlier in this explainer.
All right, last one. Let's hit our final heavy-duty chemical processing question. When you eat a heavy meal, something like meat or lentils, where exactly does the breakdown of those complex proteins start, and where does it finally end?
The starting line is the stomach. That's where intense hydrochloric acid and pepsin begin dismantling the complex structures. But it does not finish there. The exact finish line, where the final processing concludes and absorption actually happens, is the small intestine. Always remember that journey from start to finish. And that brings us to the end of our biological masterclass. We've toured the hardware, we've debugged the software, and we've reviewed the emergency protocols of your body's biggest processing factory. But I want to leave you with one final thought. Knowing everything you now know about how this incredible machinery works, look down at your dinner plate tonight. Every single bite you choose directly dictates how efficiently this factory will perform tomorrow morning. So I have to ask, what are you going to put into your factory's fuel tank tomorrow? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and as always, stay curious.